One of the most entertaining components to reviewing the Rings of Power show, for me anyway, has been watching the media outlets come out and start to say the same things that we, the fans, have been saying for weeks and months on end. And I'm not talking about the woke agenda BS that so many people try to claim that this show is. No, no. I'm talking about something far more tangible, something that actually exists, which is the show has terrible writing. And in the words of Forbes in their most recent article by Eric Kane, senior contributor, The Rings of Power has inexplicably terrible writing. And to that I say, well, Eric, you and I absolutely are in agreement because it is horrible writing. I'm Tim Anderson, aka Renfill, the bearded dwarven princess, and today we're going to be diving into this article over at Forbes talking about the inexplicably terrible writing that this show has, which is part of what's dragging it down. Now, before we go any further, this is the part of the video where I say thanks to all of these people who are supporters of this channel. They are members here as part of the Adventurers Guild, and they are members over at our Patreon page. You too can become a supporter. Super simple. Drop a super thanks on this video for whatever amount you feel is worthy of your contribution. Tune into a live stream, contribute there, and at the end of the video, we'll talk more about the other stuff. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell icon so that you can continue to get updates as I review this show and beyond. And don't forget, as always, every Monday at 11 a.m. Central, we do the Mondays in Middle-earth show where we read The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings, and The Silmarillion to reacquaint ourselves with the world of Middle-earth and to better analyze what's going on with the Rings of Power. But back to this article. The article written by Eric here, it starts off and it says, I've come to the sad realization that the creators of Amazon's The Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power know how to create a spectacle, but they don't know how to tell a good story. There it is, scrawled in blood on the wall. The writers and showrunners responsible for the show could have won me over with good fan fiction. They could have tossed Tolkien's lore into a bonfire, and I'd have been perfectly happy if they'd simply crafted an enjoyable story with characters I care about. But unfortunately, The Rings of Power is written so poorly it defies even my worst fears. Oh, yes, I was awed and impressed by the opening two episodes, just like many others, but my, how quickly a badly written TV series can wear out its welcome once the shimmer fades. Oh, sir, let's talk about a few things. So, if you have been following my reviews, I'm giving two different reviews for every episode. One is the biased review, as if I were a Tolkien fan, which I am. And those reviews have skewed towards the lower end of the totem pole because they're doing a lot of things wrong, in my opinion, with the lore. Now, wrong is a very subjective thing here because if you ask 100 Tolkien fans what is the right way to adapt the Second Age, you're going to hear 100 different answers, and not one of them is going to be exactly the same. So everyone's going to have a slight area of disagreement. But I think the one area where most of the fans agree upon is they've butchered the Galadriel storyline. They've butchered the timeline, compressing things down, the invention of characters who have nothing to do with the plot. These are things that have nothing to do with the quote unquote woke agenda that many people claim Amazon has. By the way, I don't agree. I was concerned about a woke agenda when I was leading up to the show, but having watched the show since then, I'm halfway through the series just like everyone else is. I have not seen the so called woke agenda. I've seen some things that are from the modern age, but anyway, I digress. But then I also have the unbiased review where I'm looking at it as if this were a generic fantasy show. And if, as this writer suggests, if it were a well-written piece of fan fiction, I wouldn't really care. And in some cases, I've given these episodes, 5 to 7 out of 10 stars for generic fantasy tropes, but they are always dragged down. The number one complaint I have through all the episodes that have aired to date: bad writing, bad storytelling, bad plot development. And that's on the writers and showrunners, which when I did the episode the other day about the comparison between House of the Dragon and Rings of Power. The reason why House of the Dragon is crushing Rings of Power in terms of ratings and viewership and everything else is because that is a show helmed by veterans, whereas Rings of Power is a show helmed by showrunners who have really not done anything to date. They just don't have the experience to craft good story. Now, is it a spectacle? 100%. I have said throughout all of the episodes that visually this show is without par. It looks amazing, but the writing is bad. So all that glitters is not gold is a Tolkien aphorism flipped on its head for the riddle of Strider. All that is gold does not glitter. The Rings of Power only knows how to glitter, and it's certainly not gold. It knows how to shoot slow motion shots of elves on horses or orcs leaping through the trees, also horrible Matrix style combat sequences, which are ridiculous. It gets the giant statues of elven kings and shining cities just right, and it has a sweeping score. By the way, Bear McCreary, top notch here. You can hear some of my favorite themes here. We've got a little bit of Outlander, a little bit of Black Sails, a little bit of Battlestar Galactica, a little bit of God of War. I love Bear McCreary and everything he does, and his soundtrack is absolutely top notch here. All of that's here, but the show is a little too incessant. It's a show of spectacle, and it gets the spectacle mostly right, but the problem is everything else. The problem is everything else. This part, I love this part. He says Galadriel's adventure in Numenor is honestly just embarrassing. She arrived there after being rescued and effectively has bullied everyone in her path like the elven version of a steamroller. Uh, I literally said the other day that she's just acting like a flaming bitch. She's acting like a spoiled child, constantly making demands. I'm Galadriel. I'm so and so, Warden of the West and Battle March, and I've done this and I've done that. And you don't believe that Sauron is real? Then you're just a dumbass, and you need to do what I say because my people gave you this island. And if you don't do what I say, it's annoying. I'm sick of it after 4 episodes. I was sick of it after 2 episodes, but it's gotten really old. Um, it says here that, everything taking place in Numenor is just a shortcut for the plot. Move the plot forward at all costs. No matter how many characters are butchered in the process. Um, he said he wrote about the hilariously bad Black Speech Notes by Note recently, which is another great example of the shoddy writing in the show. I absolutely agree. He also talks about how instead of actual character drama, the creators of Rings of Power simply make everyone bicker and argue with another one. Isildur and his father, Elrond and Durin, Nori and the village elders, Bronwyn and the village idiots, or Galadriel and, well, everyone. By the way, I have mentioned in my review episodes how sick I am of the Nori dialogue as well as the Galadriel dialogue, because Nori's repeating theme through every episode is, "But I've been destined to find this man. He fell from the sky, and I feel that it's destiny. And he's someone special, and I'm someone special who's supposed to watch after him." And all of her friends and all of her family are like, "No, Nori, you're cracked. Something's wrong with your head." And the whole time, because it's so obviously a red herring that this guy is someone special that fell from the sky and he has magical powers and all these things, it just feels ridiculously over the top that he's someone of great importance. So it feels very generic. The same thing with Halbrand. We know Halbrand is someone important, whether it's a red herring because he's Sauron or the Witch King, as I have speculated, and we've got more about that coming down the pipeline later this week. The reality is the spectacle is here and the overall plot is here, but the character development is some of the worst I've ever seen. And this writer agrees. The people Galadriel wants to save are evil and stupid, and some of them seem ready to throw in with Sauron at the drop of the pen, but for some reason we're supposed to care about Galadriel's quest to go fight and save them from the enemy. Again, I agree. It's stupid. Um, I don't mind Elrond, Durin, and Durin's wife Disa, but their story is spinning its wheels compared to everyone else. It's boring. I agree. The Harfoots is really silly about "no one walks alone," the little folk chant, while leaving their lame and elderly, their sick and their maimed, behind to suffer and die. It's a paradox, right? It's ridiculous. Um, then there's the new villain, Adar. I was excited about him at first. He seemed like a pretty intriguing bad guy until he let Arendar go deliver a message to the humans is just because. He said it feels like the writers couldn't be bothered to come up with a more clever way to get Arendar out of the prison pits. It's just, we have spectacle though. Lots and lots of spectacle. Um, it says Galadriel gets her army just by being a jerk. And what now? We're going to war, but the problem is we don't care. Arondir gets back to Bronwyn and his tidings are dire, but we just don't care. This is bad writing, pure and simple. Bad characterization, choppy dialogue, characters who don't make sense and clearly dislike one another as much as we dislike them. Everything feels forced and contrived, especially the Galadriel storyline. Mm. Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm. I don't disagree. Um, there's a great article in here overall if you would like to read through this at your leisure. I'm going to link it down below. It is longer than what I'm covering here. There's a lot of great information. So if you've got 30 minutes to set aside today, I would highly recommend reading through this editorial opinion piece because it does shed a light on one person's opinion, which I think mirrors a lot of what people like myself feel. Note that this article doesn't talk about any of the woke agenda bullshit that so many people out there are claiming exists. I'm going to do another video about that another time because we're not talking about that component. We're talking about the writing and the characters and the plot line. This is something we were concerned about for months on end because we saw this bad dialogue showing up in the trailers. Love to hear your thoughts below. Drop them down. As always, if you got to the end of this and you liked this, like, subscribe, bell icon, please do that so you get more of the same. Drop a super thanks down below. It's a great way to support me as a content creator because guess what? I don't work for free and these things take a lot of time to put together. So there's a button down there. You can also join as a member of the Adventurers Guild or you can tune into a live stream and join the ranks of all of these amazing people who support the channel. Hopefully I'll see you in the next episode as we continue to rant about Rings of Power and review the episodes as well. Until next time, stay safe everybody. Happy viewing.